Jennie, I'm so excited to have you on Marketing Happy Hour. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me, Cassie. Good. It's Monday. Happy hour will happen a little later today.
Yes. Yes. Well, on that too, what's in your glass right now, or what are you excited to sit for happy hour later today?
Ooh, so my morning normally starts with my oat milk latte.
Love that.
That's just that's the start of the day. And I've been trying to do, just more water in general.
Yes.
But right now I am drinking this beet celery ginger juice. A lot of people are
Ooh.
sick, and I'm trying to not get sick.
Yes.
And it actually tastes really good.
Oh,
But then in the evening, I switched to, I guess, another kind of red, an Italian red. Like my husband and I've been on more of like that non-Californian
yes.
wines, which has been really good. So yeah, that's my fluid for throughout the day.
Love that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we love supporting local wineries, but it's good to kind of switch it up a little bit here and there. Do
Sure.
you have the juice? Did you make that yourself or did you get it from a shop somewhere?
I did get it from a shop. We do live behind like a small grocery store. They have like fresh juice every morning, so I grabbed it on my way out. Just again, I was in the hunt for let's not get sick. What can I take?
Yes. I feel that. I feel that. I know anytime I'm around someone who's been sick, I'm like, ginger shots, vitamin C, vitamin D. I'm outside for 30 minutes a day, everything I can. Cause I mean, running a business, I can imagine like can't have anything slow you down, right? So it's
That's
super
right.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to dive into your story. So, can you share a little bit about your personal story behind the creation of Kinn Studio? What really inspired creating this brand, and tell us a little bit just about your personal journey into the world of fine jewelry.
I probably don't have the most traditional career path, to be honest with you. I'm not from fashion. I didn't have like this linear start here and then you grow into something, and it's just been a little bit of zigzag. But I do have to say, like, every piece of it has been, I guess, in hindsight now, has been super helpful. So I graduated undergrad with psychology and social behavior, which I had no idea what I wanted to do with. I liked the topic, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. Right after graduation, like many, I was just interviewing. I was just didn't know what I wanted to do. I've had some, side jobs here and there. I worked at a Hyatt, like the hotel,
Hmm.
in college, thinking I wanted to be in hospitality, and I realized, okay, maybe that's not the path I wanted to get into. I worked a little bit of retail, and I was like, okay, maybe that's not for me either. I landed in human resources. I did think it was like the most practical and logical role, like every business has one. Can you tell I'm a Virgo? I'm just like super practical in so many
Love
ways.
it. Love it.
um, but that did lead me to working for a law firm and then to a media platform company that eventually acquired MySpace. I at such a young career, watching a company acquire, another giant company, I was just mesmerized by what all the things that goes behind behind doors. And being in HR, you got to see a lot of that, and like people building and all that good stuff. So yeah, I mean, while I was doing HR, especially at MySpace, I got a chance to work with a lot of engineers and people in tech who were also leaving the company and I was doing, some of the exit interviews. And of course, I'm begging that question, like, what are you doing after? Where are you going? And they were all telling me that they're going to start their own companies. And again, I know this totally ages me, but 2010, that's still in the early days of startups. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I was like, what do you mean you're not, how are you gonna pay yourself?
Yeah.
Um, like, who are you working with? And again, I'm just a very curious person. To begin with, I'm almost like, tell me everything you know so I can learn from that. That itch kind of got my eyes opened into the whole startup entrepreneurial world, what it takes to be in there. And looking back, I mean, my dad, you know, has had his own business, and I was like, oh, this is entrepreneurship. So I kind of started to draw the lines here, there. Um, at the same time, while I was working full time, I was getting my MBA. And I promise I will get to Kinn eventually, but during my MBA with the program, I got a chance to live in Hong Kong as like a study abroad program for about a half a year. And it's something I didn't get a chance to do in undergrad. So I thought, you know, why not? Here's an opportunity to just be abroad. While I was studying, I networked a lot. I wanted to see what the culture was like there. And that's where I met CASETiFY, which is the company that I was with prior to Kinn. That's where I met the co-founders. And I was hired on as an intern, then as a first employee to the company. And the founders being out in Hong Kong, they've asked me to, you know, bring the company out to the US. And I helped establish the business here while I was finishing on my program. And, you know, that turned into 7-8 years. And, you know, as one of the first employees, you literally are kind of acting like a founder, you know, building everything from scratch, you know, building out marketing programs, hiring people. Yeah. And so I watched that, you know, help that grow. And, you know, there were many times where I did think I definitely want to start my own business one day. I just never really knew what, nor was I passionate enough about any one particular thing. And right, it's the whole, like, I'm very comfortable here, comfortable in a sense that I'm doing something really great. It's exhilarating, and, you know, why would I leave this for something else, right? And unfortunately, in 2016 or so, my parents' house was broken into. This is my family house. You know, we had, you know, I lived there throughout my high school, and all their family heirloom was taken. So including my grandma's engagement ring, my dad's watch, like pieces that I was supposed to be handed down. And the idea was simply to replace some of the pieces that they lost, right? Let me see what I can do. I was already working in downtown LA. And I met, you know, some jewelers down here that were kind of turning me away. No, I can't make you that. Or, you know, no, this is $5,000. And I think myself as a shopper, I quickly got a little bit intimidated by this whole shopping experience of being, you know, looking for fine jewelry. I don't think at the time I even understood the difference between fine versus plated. Again, the curious me, I think I just kept poking around. And there was one bench jeweler who kind of, you know, I kept coming back. You know, I probably annoyed him a lot. And, you know, he then kind of started to teach me a few things here and there. And fast forward, he started to make me some pieces, and then it became my friends and family who were asking for, you know, pieces. What I knew how was e-commerce. So again, I'm still working full time for CASETiFY, and at evenings and weekends, I took a Shopify template, and, you know, I took some iPhone photos, and I made a site just to, again, just let's see where this goes, right? So I guess this is the beginning of what we call side hustle. And yeah, I drove that for about a little over a year. And then you know, I was always down to that question of, when am I gonna, you know, is this gonna be a real thing? Do I leave something really good? And fast forward, it's been almost 7 years this October officially that Kinn's been around. So that's my twisted journey.
Oh my gosh. I love it so much though. And it's so cool because even in the earliest stages of your career, you mentioned psychology and then law and tapping into all these diverse industries. I feel like sometimes as professionals, we look at these crazy career journeys we've been on and we're like, there's no way none of this stuff added up to where we are today, or there's no way my past in law or psychology or any of this stuff like matters. But it's all of those pieces add up to what we're doing today in our lives. And I think just remembering and tapping into those knowledge areas and expertises. And I mean, even just thinking of psychology, I was fascinated about psychology back in college and took several classes and just using even that knowledge and pulling it into marketing and how do customers want to be spoken to? What are the needs of a consumer on like a very personal and human level, and just infusing all of these past experiences that we have into what we do today and appreciating all of that stuff. So I want to give you kudos for just navigating all these different avenues and paths and everything. And it's always so fascinating to hear that. But I think that really makes you, both as a professional and a person, such a well-rounded human being. And I know for a fact all of those steps led to where you are today. So it's just incredible to hear. So thank you
Thank you.
for sharing
I mean,
that.
I don't take any of that back. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people are saying, well, what do I need to do, you know, to become an entrepreneur? What do I need to do XYZ? And rather than, you know, rushing into what well, actually, it's always good to kind of work yourself backwards, but
Mhm.
you know, there is no harm in, you know, go in with the full heart. And when you're in something, when you decide to dedicate yourself to you know, a job, whether it's temporary or freelance or, you know, project, go full wholeheartedly and learn from that, because you don't know when where that's going to be taken
Yeah.
to, as kind of like your next step. So
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you again for sharing the story behind Kinn Studio. Again, just it sounds like a very personal brand that you've built, and I love just hearing the founder's perspective of that. But how do you currently, either today or even just along the years, how do you approach brand development and business strategy just to create a brand that resonates with modern shoppers while honoring those timeless traditions? I know a lot of us could agree that heirlooms from family and just pieces from our background and it's such a special thing. So how are you kind of infusing that into this modern day of fashion and trends and everything?
I mean, this is probably a not PR friendly answer, but to be honest, I don't think I went in with the specific strategy. I didn't have a business proposal. I mean, as much as I did get my MBA and I learned the foundations of, you know, how to read a PNL, how do you know, market your brand, but this truly, because I went in as a passion project, I was speaking as if, how, you know, like, how do you want to be spoken to? I think the aha moment for me, again, only in hindsight, because I think in the moment I didn't realize it, is I had friends and family and friends of friends, for that matter, starting to ask me the same questions that I was asking. So if you are asking, if you're curious, or, you know, if there's an itch that you want to scratch, what is that? Because I bet you somebody else, you know, somebody else wants to know the same thing that you do. And, you know, if there's Google, I mean, yeah, Google and see what, you know, answers are out there. But you know, maybe connect with those people and, you know, see who they are. Randomly reach out on LinkedIn and say, hey, I saw that you wrote an article about this. I have the same question. Like, where did you, you know, where did you go to like get those answers, or like, what's your path been like? I do genuinely, you know, cold outbound reaching and connecting with random people. But back to your question about how did I create the strategy? I mean, I don't think I necessarily had a formula, but you know, I think if I can spell out the years in the making, I think the first year, first and foremost, was just focusing on the product, right? So whether you're building a product centric company or service centric company, that product, whatever that offering is, like it just has to be solid. And if you think that you cut corners to make that or build that service, well, guess what? Someone else is also going to sniff that out. So make sure that your product is something that you can live behind. That's something that I realized, like looking back at CASETiFY's days too. We were doing a lot of drop tests. So put the phone case on, literally throw it from, I don't know, I think we did like a 3-story high drop test, and we dropped it and nothing happened to the phone. Like, can you do that? Do you stand behind your products first and foremost? So understanding that, along with, again, answering the same questions that you had, like, are there people who are wondering of the same thing? So that's the first year, first and foremost. Second year, I think I got into the positioning of the brand, right? Because I didn't go in with, pretty branding, the exciting PR launch, a launch party with influencers invited. I didn't do all that. I skipped all of that. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a time that I should focus on that. And I know I had a point of view, and the point of view was that, to me, fine jewelry wasn't necessarily an accessory, which it can be. And I myself sometimes mix and match with costume jewelry or, bigger pieces that I can't make it in with solid gold or, real big diamonds. But like, to me, fine jewelry meant something that gets passed on with stories. I mean, oftentimes, I point out, oh, I really like that ring that you're wearing. Where did you get it? And their answer is often, oh, it's my grandma's. And that's almost always the best answer, because it'll come with more stories of how they got that, or who that person was, and why this meant, something so important for them. So again, it's the positioning of, how does your brand exist in this saturated world? So with this point of view, I didn't necessarily know how to spell it out. So I did reach out to an old business partner, and I said, hey, how would you like to work on this project to help me, make it into a living, breathing, world with reference points, rules as a brand. What is a brand? What is it supposed to feel like, smell like, look like? Who is she and who is she not? So we really worked hard on that in the earlier years. And it's something that I do recommend people to do, maybe year one. Earlier the better, because I think the positioning is kind of like your foundation to everything else that you built upon. And then year 3 and 4, we worked on operations, expanding our manufacturers, along with product expansions, right? We launched an engagement line because it was a natural move for the business. We were doing vintage drops because I was curating a lot of them. I was wearing a lot of them. People were asking for sale, and I made it as part of the Kinn formula. And then we're on year 5, 6. We kind of pulsed back on operations, because at the end of the day, know your numbers. And then now we're just kind of doubling down on hiring the right team. So, I mean, this was our years of, again, our version of the formula. There's really no right or wrong ways of approaching it. But that's how at least we approached it. And it seems like it's been good so far.
Yeah. Well, I love how you broke it down year by year too, because I feel like a lot of times as business owners, or even being inside of a corporate organization, breaking down that strategy or plan, we feel like we have to optimize all those areas at once, or pretty close together. So I love how you have kind of shared, take it one step at a time, perfect this area, then move on to the next one. And I feel like that just allows you to have this perspective of we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always trying to figure out what's next or what's better or what can we do to improve the customer experience or the story or whatever. But I think that's so important to remember because especially when it comes to just comparison and looking at everyone else in the world and just saying, oh, we have to look like this now, you can kind of take a step back and get to that point eventually. But I think that's
Oh yeah.
always a good
And I
reminder.
mean, there's so many layers behind that. And I didn't, let me be clear, I didn't
Yeah.
go into some of these years being like, okay, this is what I want to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was just a matter of, okay, this seems like this is the weakest link of
Yeah.
the business today. And that's where I decided to shift my focus to. But um, yeah, it's constantly building on another. And oftentimes, you know, revisiting something that you've built on is always fun too. Like
Yeah.
I look at my brand guide that we built again year two, and I'm like,
Hmm.
is this still relevant? Right? Kind of like pulsing back to say, did I grow out of this as a business? Is this still resonating with the customers? And, you know, I was recently at a, what do you call it? A conference, and they said, as outdated as this sounds, like figure out who your VIP customers are and get them on the phone.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm a millennial, so like I'm like, okay, phone doesn't
Yeah.
bother me, but like it's not my preferred method unless like I'm phoning, you know, my mom or my best friend or
Yeah.
but like to use it for work, I was like, okay, that sounds a little, it seems hard. But I remember when we launched our new website earlier this year, you know, there was one, like our VVV VIP customer. She's like, I love your new website, but like I have feedback. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, give it
Oh
to
my
me.
gosh.
So I suggested, I was like, hey, can we, you know, hop on a Google Meet? I'd love
Yeah.
to kind of like share the screen so that you can walk me through where you're kind of like getting your raging clicks or like where you're getting stuck where something doesn't make sense. I want to say that was like one of the best calls I've had in a while, I would say. I think for business purposes,
Yeah.
because she was telling me exactly where like she was like, this is not aligning with me. And I'm like, this is gold. And these are things that I can take back straight back into the business. And then, you know, smaller the business you are, the faster you can make some of these improvements. So yeah, and so I was thinking, okay, if we could do a couple more of that, like what would that look like?
Hmm.
So pulsing back to your initial approach, making sure that it still resonates with your customers, I think
Yeah.
it's super important.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And we can make so many changes all day long of what we think things should look like, but taking it back to the customer because they are the ones who are going to be going through that journey is so incredibly important. But kind of on that, I want to talk a little bit about marketing. So, since launch, what strategies have you all implemented to expand your reach and connect with your target audience? And so you kind of
Mhm.
mentioned, doing those VIP calls is one of the pieces after you've built this target audience and established your customer base. But leading up into then, or even now to even expand even further, what are you guys kind of focusing on here in 2024 as we're speaking?
Yeah, I think being a D2C company is, I mean, as competitive as it's become today, I think it's one of the best things and one of your advantages, if
Yeah.
anything. You get to own your channels and you get the opportunity to connect with your customers and literally direct D2C means direct to consumer,
Yeah.
right? So you don't you're not selling through a wholesale. You're not, you know, you're not a platform for someone else. You get to talk to your customers. And looking back, I think what was most helpful is, and it is actually a full circle moment because we just opened up our first concept store. Um, so I attended a lot of marketplaces, so like pop-ups, including the one at the platform. So I remember poking around. I'm like, okay, this online thing is great, but customers are already saying that I don't know my ring size. I'd love to see you in person. So I would try to look for pop-ups, and this is before the pandemic. So one of the things that I did was try to look for pop-ups that are like-minded, like-minded as in, like the brands or the type of the customers that are going to be coming around. So I set up a little table with select pieces, meet the customers in person. And the fact that I got to, again, it's the whole in person, I get to talk to the customers in person, ask them the questions, seeing them literally try on your product and then putting it down. And, you get to ask right away, oh, what made you not, or like what didn't work out for you? I mean, that's like literally, if you were to like be online, if somebody added something to checkout and they abandoned your cart, that's an opportunity for you to be like, why did you abandon the
Yeah.
cart? So it was like real life experience. So I think that was really helpful. And I did quite a few of those. And that was like my way of acquiring new customers. And of course, fast forward now, we launched the concept store, which then, it's allowing us to connect with the customers every day. So I would say that's part of the formula. But, we are doing like the traditional, paid ads, email. We do trunk shows with our wholesale partners, including Goop, Clarabee. So we try to kind of, get ourselves out there as much as possible to be in front of the customer. And then we're all very, very data driven. I think if there's one thing, especially in marketing, I think people often think marketing is this pretty, social media, you take pretty pictures, get in front of the influencers. And let me tell you, first and foremost, that itself is really hard. That is a job of its own.
Yes.
But, what I always teach my, anyone that's in content. So the way I look at marketing is it has two pillars. One is more performance driven, and the other one is content driven, branded driven. So, but both worlds have to understand each other, right? Like my performance marketing team, they understand what is branding, what does that feel like, what is that, feel, touch. Yeah, so like they understand exactly what that other side does as much as the branded team, they're driven by performance, right? Your goal of content is to engage with the customers or getting clicks. I mean, if we're talking strictly around the digital side. And if you're not doing that, well, guess what? You're creating content for yourself, and that doesn't necessarily work for a business. And so understanding both parts of marketing, I think it's super important for any growing businesses.
Yeah. And I want to kind of hone in on what you just mentioned too about having performance and content speaking to each other on a regular basis. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this just clear division between those departments, and departments that just do not talk, they don't engage, they don't share their findings on a regular basis. And to your point, you have to have all of those touch points speaking to one another, or else there's this lack of alignment and it creates confusion and internally, but also externally. And so it's so powerful just to have regular conversations and collaborations and brainstorms and things like that, and just sharing internally, because ultimately you're all working towards similar goals. So why wouldn't you at that point?
I mean, an email would probably be a really great example of that. So, right, an email, like a campaign email, looks like a subject line, a hero image with a text overlay with a click, and you can have, products below. Yeah, if the content manager took, or content creator provided us with assets that we can use. Let's say somebody opens an email, but they don't click through. Well, I think that's where we can, I mean, there are other factors, but I think that's it's an indicator that maybe the content wasn't resonating with the end consumer. So how do we tie this bridge together? And that's what we talk about in our meetings. And this is our marketing meeting where it's performance plus branded side of the teams coming together.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's talk about Kinn Journal because I love it. It just sounds like story is such a large pillar and foundation of your brand, just overall. So, why was it important for you to kind of bring Kinn Journal to life? And feel free to please share kind of a little bit about what that is as well. But I love blogging. I think it's such a powerful marketing tool, but it's also such a powerful tool for the consumer to really understand on a deeper level who you are and why you do what you do. So would love for you to share more about just the inspiration behind that and why it's important for you to relevant or highlight relevant stories.
Yeah. Well, listen, at the end of the day, I think consumers are always looking for a way to connect with whether a brand or a person or a service, whatever that is. There's so much content out there. But what I do know for sure is this, is that everyone has their own story to tell. And, you know, our jewelry just happens to be, you know, one way of expressing your story. And yeah, I mean, why we started it, I think mainly so that I got an opportunity to speak more to things that couldn't necessarily live just on social or it didn't, you know, belong anywhere else. And so that I had an opportunity to tell that story. Now that story then became a little bit of education, education meaning all the questions that I initially had around what is solid 14K jewelry? What is that made out of? How do I take care of it? Then it, you know, we layered on with, you know, styling. Okay, if I have this piece, how do I layer that on? And then became, you know, people stories, people that I was personally inspired by, people that I was meeting. I think earlier I was mentioning that I love just poking around and meeting different people from different, you know, expertise of their lives. And yeah, we created what we call Meet the Artist. So, I mean, artist not being necessarily, you know, someone who's painting, but, you know, a creative. It could be a florist, it could be a makeup artist. I truly enjoyed talking to them, and I thought, why not highlight them, give them the opportunity to share their story, what jewelry means to them, maybe. And then fast forward, it became more of a strategic play where it is SEO, tying that back into like the performance marketing side of things. But I've always loved to journal myself. I mean, I'm that live journal and Zanga girly from back in the days. I know now I've like completely aged myself, but yeah, no, I truly did enjoy writing. And, you know, when I do look for a brand to support, I do kind of poke around and read about like their about page, like where are they making their pieces, or, you know, where are they based? What are they like? And I do try to look for a journal page to get deeper into their inspiration, what their world looks like, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about any upcoming launches, anything you're able to share now. What do you all have coming up just in the next, you know, 6 months, a year, however far out you want to share?
You guys are the first to hear it. But we have, so this concept store was supposed to be, you know, temporary for 3 months.
Yeah.
We're so excited to be extending that.
Oh my God.
And we are looking forward to making this into a bigger expansion in the upcoming year.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us where we can find the concept store, just anyone visiting or local that wants to pop by. Cause to your point, I think it's so important just to be able to touch and feel the jewelry and experience it yourself before purchasing.
We are at the platform in Culver City, in downtown Culver City. But if you also want to make a private appointment, you can come see us in downtown Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, you can find us on Kinn Studio to follow our journey along. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, congrats on that. And we're so excited just to continue to stay tuned with you and everything going on at Kinn Studio. And just congrats on all the development and growth over the years and even just launching in the first place. It's so wonderful to hear your story. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really quick before you go, too, what's the best place to learn more about Kinn, whether on social or online?
We're on kinnstudio.com, on socials, Kinn Studio, LinkedIn, Kinn Studio. We are on TikTok. We try to get a little playful there, so follow us along.
Amazing. Well, Jennie, thank you so much again for sharing your story, sharing the Kinn story, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Marketing Happy Hour podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you want more of Marketing Happy Hour but don't know where to start, we invite you to download our free Marketing Happy Hour starter kit at marketinghappyhr.com/starter-kit. This interactive magazine-style PDF walks through who we are, includes helpful resources like a marketing term glossary and the printable daily planner sheet that we actually use ourselves, and contains clickable links to our episode recommendations by subject area. Not to mention all the fun extras like a quiz, the link to our Marketing Happy Hour Insiders Facebook group, a word search, a playlist, a goal-setting guide, content inspo by month, and more. It's our hope that you'll dive into this resource and walk away more confident in your career journey with a group of industry pals that you can lean on for advice and support. Snag your free starter kit today at marketinghappyhr.com/starter-kit for all of the info you need to become a Marketing Happy Hour insider.